There's a tiny village located in a neutral zone between Benin Republic and Burkina Faso. This small village has become a hub for all kinds of illegal activities and trade. This is the Kalu region, a highly disputed border between these two countries. On the surface, it looks just like another remote borderland. But this place hides a secret of West Africa's most lucrative underground trade: oil smuggling.
The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation has lamented the escalating incidents of petrol smuggling across Nigeria's borders, which it puts at a whopping 42 million liters per day.
On the Benin side of the border, under the cover of night, men drive old trucks full of jerrycans with smuggled fuel from a Nigerian coastal port where large tankers quietly offload stolen oil into hidden depots. By the time it reaches Koro, it has been altered, disguised and repackaged to avoid suspicion while crossing the border. But this is just the beginning of a long ride into the final destination. From Koro, the smugglers transport this fuel using small, unmarked vehicles. They sometimes use motorbikes or hide the fuel under sacks of grain. The smugglers know every trail, every patrol schedule, and every official willing to look the other way for the right price. By morning, the fuel reaches Kalu, where underground storage tanks are buried in farms and backyards. This is no small operation. From Kualo, the fuel is sold to black market dealers who distribute it across Burkina Faso and even further, supplying black market fuel stations and industries willing to pay less for smuggled oil. All this happens while governments lose millions of dollars. So the question is, how did this illegal trade grow so big? Who are the people behind it? And most importantly, what's been done by the government to stop them? This is the story of the criminal cartel behind oil smuggling in Africa.
The biggest issue and challenge for the economy and also for manufacturers is actually to do with smuggling.
Oil smuggling, which involves the illegal movement and trade of oil products like crude oil, gasoline, and diesel, has become a very lucrative business in Africa. Smugglers can sell oil at prices lower than the regular market price, allowing them to make a good profit because of the big difference in oil prices between countries. Take for instance, Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, and Niger, which are all countries from the Sahel region of Africa, were said to at one point use over 90,500 barrels of gasoline and diesel fuel each day. That is more than 33 million barrels a year, or an equivalent of 5 billion liters. Now, consider this scenario. If the average pump price is $1 per liter, the total value of gasoline in the region, both legal and illegal, could be at least $5 billion each year. That is the size of the market here. Some of these countries are among Africa's largest oil producers. Still, all 5 countries rely heavily on illegal fuel imports from nearby countries. While countries like Chad, Mauritania, and Niger produce oil, only Chad and Niger can refine crude into fuel on a large scale. And then there is Nigeria, another country in the Sahel that makes this oil smuggling possible and lucrative.
President Goodluck Jonathan has said that 60% of the total fuel subsidy funds meant for the benefit of the masses in Nigeria were smuggled out of the country.
You see, Nigeria's subsidized fuel prices have contributed immensely to the smuggling problem. Fuel intended for domestic use is sold cheaply to licensed marketers by the NNPC, that is the Nigerian Oil Company. However, instead of selling this oil locally, some marketers, with help from corrupt officials, smuggle the subsidized product across the border to nearby countries like Niger, Cameroon, Benin, and Chad, where they resell it at higher prices even after paying their costs. One of the countries where smugglers love to sell their product is Benin Republic.
Akere waterfront was the only route that we knew from the Benin Republic down to Nigeria, but there's no permit for them to be carrying fuel in jerrycans.
Benin heavily depends on a vast illegal network that smuggles petrol from Nigeria. This West African country, home to nearly 11 million people, struggle to provide enough fuel for its population. Its gas stations are too few, and Nigeria's much cheaper fuel prices make it impossible for Benin to compete. This situation has led to the rise of a very lucrative business opportunity. But this opportunity is not exploited by greedy Nigerian oil marketers alone. About 40 years ago, smugglers in Benin began buying petrol from Nigeria and illegally transporting it back to their country. The leaders of this illegal trade have reportedly gained significant influence over the years. Reports claim that some powerful figures in Benin are even involved in this trade, and they have allegedly worked their way up the ranks, shaping politics to serve their interests. But how do they operate? When the merchandise arrive on Beninese soil, hundreds of men with motorbikes are seen waiting on the shore for the jerrycans bearing the initials of their bosses. Their first job is to identify their cans, then load and securely fasten them to their bikes. Transporting the fuel is quite a risky job. They travel through dangerous forest paths and crowded city streets in places like Cotonou and Porto Novo, putting themselves and others at risk. The smuggling routes are extensive, stretching across the nearly 800-kilometer border between Nigeria and Benin. According to the cable, some people in towns like Semekrake and other remote villages make a living by buying and reselling fuel smuggled from Nigeria. But this business involves more than just transporting and managing fuel operations. Although illegal, the smuggling business has created jobs for the people living here, as there's a role for almost everyone interested. Some sell the containers and sacks used to carry the fuel, others handle the loading, and some even act as lookouts or informants to help the smugglers avoid getting caught. This illegal industry generates around 105 billion CFA franc annually, which is about 160 million euros or $172 million. It is alleged that the government of Benin has struggled for years to stop this trade, as such a move would not only anger both the smugglers and customers who rely on cheaper fuel, it would also cut off the country's main source of petrol. But this trade is not limited to the Benin Republic alone. The borders between Nigeria and Cameroon crawls with lawless folks carrying out similar trade in areas stretching across states like Adamawa, Taraba, and Cross River. The presence of security personnel from Nigeria and Cameroon have done little to stop these illegal activities, with some security officers from both countries alleged to be involved in the smuggling business. In Nigeria, the Joint Task Force, which is supposed to combat crimes like oil theft, is alleged to be complicit. And instead of curbing illegal activities, some members are said to accept bribes to protect pipeline vendors and illegal oil refineries. Similarly, in Cameroon, security officers confiscate smuggled oil from small traders only to allegedly resell it themselves for profit. According to some retired military sources, stolen crude oil from southern Nigerian states like Bayelsa and Rivers is transported via creeks to states near the border, such as Akwa Ibom and Cross River. From there, the oil is smuggled to Cameroon using small boats carrying as much as 300,000 liters of oil daily to ports like Idenau in Cameroon. The Niger River is a key route for some of these smuggling activities. But who is the mastermind behind this illegal business? Oil smuggling can happen on a small scale, like when local fishermen take oil across border towns in small boats, especially in areas where countries are close to each other. On a larger scale though, smuggling is done by organized groups such as transnational criminal networks, militant groups, terrorists, or even governments. These organized crime groups often work with corrupt officials to avoid getting caught. Like in 2011, during the reign of the Niger Delta Avengers in Nigeria, oil theft by these militants and criminal networks was said to have cost Nigeria about $4.4 billion. In October 2018, the Navy denied accusations that its personnel took large bribes from oil bunkerers to let them operate freely in Bela coastal communities in Rivers State. people in Bayelsa State have reported that the military often does not destroy illegal oil refining facilities, but instead targets sites where they dump flammable waste. There were also claims that military personnel ask for payments from illegal refineries to let them continue their operations. These payments are said to be done on a schedule. When refineries fail to pay, they face penalties. For example, a report about military's involvement in oil theft in the Niger Delta published in 2019 stated that one refinery failed to pay its operational fee of 4 million Nigerian naira, about $11,000 at the time. When military officers arrived at the given deadline, they opened fire, allegedly killing one person and demanding an extra 200,000 Nigerian naira, that is about $550 for the delay. The next day, the refinery paid 1.7 million naira, that is $5,000 at the time, to the rogue officers with a promise to pay the remaining 2.3 million naira later. Military personnel were also accused of collecting payments from people involved in oil theft at checkpoints in a planned way. In the investigation, some persons interviewed in Port Harcourt explained that those trading in oil products could pay fees in advance to move easily through checkpoints and avoid having their goods taken by these people. They must, however, inform the military about the exact amount of oil they want to transport and pay a contact before passing through these checkpoints. These rogue officers then check if the declared amount matches the actual cargo when the vehicle passes through. If there are discrepancies, the military may seize the vehicle and its products. In Cross River, smuggling is highly organized under a group called the Nitrate Union. This union is said to oversee the transportation of fuel across the Nigerian-Cameroon border. Membership here is said to require connections and hefty fees, with leaders reportedly earning millions weekly when business is good. Now, there's one other African country plagued by oil smuggling. Libya's oil riches should have been its salvation, but with its refining capacity crippled by years of conflict, Libya still depends on imported fuel. To make it affordable for its citizens, the government subsidized it heavily, creating a black market bonanza as smugglers divert fuel and sell it abroad at market prices for enormous profits. In the western Libyan town of Zawiya, just outside of Tripoli, one of the nation's key refineries, Zawiya Oil Refining Company, has become the center of this illegal trade. A local warlord, Fahmy Ben Khalifa, known as the King of Zawiya, worked with the armed militia Shuhada al-Nasr Brigade. The brigade is supposed to guard the facility, but in reality, it takes a cut of the profits from smuggling activities. This way, the petrol that was supposed to benefit Libya's people is then loaded onto fishing boats and small tankers for export. But where does this shipment go? According to an investigation by Public Eye and Trial International, one of the international buyers of Libya's stolen oil was a Swiss company, Colmar Group AG, a large fuel and biofuels trader incorporated in Zug in 1997, where it also had its headquarters. Between 2012 and 2015, investigators discovered that the Zug-based company Colmar AG rented 8 fuel tanks in Ras Hanzi. From July to December 2015, Colmar also occupied all 5 of the fuel tanks belonging to the Has Samta underground storage facility, which is located by the airport. This investigation further revealed that from 27th May 2014 to 18th July 2015, vessels named Rota, Amazigh Elf and Sela offloaded marine gas oil 22 times at the dolphins of Ras Hanzi and Has Samta at a time when Colmar was leasing these storage units. The multi-state-owned NMED confirmed that a total of 50,911 metric tons were offloaded on these occasions. In most cases, the tankers returning from the Libyan coast, interestingly enough, had taken time to switch off their AIS system for several hours or even days, thereby enabling these smugglers to temporarily fall off the radar. The investigators compared the ship movements with bank transfers made by Colmar to Oceano Blue Trading Limited, and the connection was hard to miss. Between June and July 2015, The ships Amazigh and Sela docked at the Ras Hansi and Has Samta ports 9 times. Around the same time, from June 18th to July 22nd, 2015, Coleman sent over $11 million to a company owned by Darren De Bono. The timing was too close to be a coincidence. They discovered that Coleman received over 20 shipments of smuggled Libyan fuel between 2014 and 2015. These shipments were arranged through shady partnerships, including one with Maltese businessmen Darren De Bono and Gordon De Bono. Darren De Bono is a former Maltese football star who runs a seafood restaurant located in the Maltese capital of La Valletta. But behind the scenes, his fishing company was a front for moving smuggled fuel. His associate Gordon De Bono, the football player's namesake, a Ferrari-driving businessman who boasts of owning one in every color available, ran a small trading company, Petroplus Limited, a company that chartered 2 ships, the Ruta and the Sele, which traveled to Libya regularly to help Fahmy transport fuel stolen from Zawiya's refinery. The oil would leave Libya on small fishing boats, transferred to tankers owned by Darren and Gordon, and quietly vanish into the ports of Malta and Sicily. By 2015, the smuggling operation caught the attention of Colonel Francisco Ruiz of Italy's Guardia di Finanza, a specialized police force. Ruiz first noticed something odd in January 2015. He noticed that satellite imagery and AIS tracking used to monitor ship movements showed tankers appearing along Libya's coast and vanishing from radar. They would then reappear days later in Maltese ports. Ruiz and his team launched Operation Dirty Oil, a covert investigation that traced the fuel from Libyan waters to Europe's black market, and what they found was quite shocking. Between June 2015 and June 2016, while tracking De Bono's 4 ships, he discovered that about 82,000 tons of smuggled fuel worth millions had been trafficked into Sicily alone, under a company called Maxcom Bunkers SA. The smugglers bought the fuel for 27 million euros, even though the same amount would normally be worth 51 million euros on the open market. Instead of selling it for the official price of 0.53 euros per liter, they sold it very cheaply at just 0.28 euros per liter. But the story didn't end in Malta. Once the fuel arrived, it was stored in tanks, some of which were rented by this company called Coleman. And to cover up the fact that it came from Libya, the fuel was mixed with other types to disguise its origin. Then it was sold across Europe and ended up at petrol stations in countries like Italy, France, and Spain, despite not meeting the strict standards for car fuel in Europe. This mixing process to disguise the origin is known as oil blending. As Ruiz dug deeper, he uncovered a connection between Fahmy Ben Khalifa and the De Bono duo in Malta, and an unsuspecting player, Coleman Group AG, a Swiss trading company. Ruiz's team stumbled upon Darren's peculiar purchases, high-tech satellite phones bought on a company card. Officially, Darren was running a seafood business, but why did a fisherman need a satellite phone? This question led investigators to Darren's fleet of ships, which included tankers like the Amazigh F and the Ruta. These vessels regularly sailed between Zawiya and Malta, unloading their cargo at storage facilities rented by Coleman. Also, Coleman's payments to Oceano Blue Trading Limited, one of Darren De Bono's shell companies, raised eyebrows. Between June and July 2015, Coleman transferred 11 million US dollars to this small Maltese business, a sum that coincided with the arrival of smuggled shipments at Coleman's rented tanks in Malta. This money trail pointed straight to the heart of the smuggling operation. When Italian investigators tapped into phone lines and intercepted documents, they discovered that Fahmy's certificates of origin for the oil shipments were all fraudulent. These certificates had been created using the scanner of a Maltese company, World Water Fisheries, belonging to Darren De Bono. And while the investigators were taking a closer look at the 2 men's business activities, They were alerted to possible irregularities in the movement of gas oil to Italy by another company, the Italian petrol giant Eni, which had operated in Libya for several decades. And as always, the losers in all of this are the Libyan people, who have seen their government spend $23.5 billion on fuel imports between 2013 and 2017. A huge sum for a nation already crippled by war, all while smugglers lined their pockets. Now, while stories of cartels and crime syndicates like this might be interesting to watch on TV shows and Hollywood movies, I'd like to warn that this particular story is no fiction. There are real-life consequences to these crimes being committed. Now, let me show you the people who are at the receiving end of this unimaginable theft and wickedness. For oil-dependent economies like Libya, Angola, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, and Nigeria, smuggling drains state revenue. Governments in these countries can no longer invest in schools, hospitals, or infrastructure. Here are images of schools from Nigeria. And these are hospitals in a country of over 200 million people. These right here are images of roads that the Nigerian people are forced to ply every day as they carry out their activities. Smuggled fuel creates black markets that hurt these economies of these countries, slowing down their growth and development. During the first 3 months of 2022 alone, crude oil theft caused a loss of $1 billion in revenue to the Nigerian government. Oil theft also affects the livelihood of fishermen and farmers by increasing the risk of oil spills and environmental damage. Money acquired from oil smuggling is also allegedly used to buy weapons and support conflicts with militants and armed groups, particularly in the Niger Delta region. In Cameroon, smuggled fuel has hurt the operations of its Sonara refinery, which struggles to sell its fuel production locally. New refineries in Chad and Niger also face competition from smuggled fuel, which is often sold cheaper. This illegal oil trade damages the economy by reducing government tax revenue, costing the energy industry billions and cutting legitimate jobs. In Benin Republic, illegal fuel meets about 80% of local demand. Libya faces a similar challenge, with fuel smuggling worth about $5 billion annually. So, what is the government doing to curb this illegal operation that is threatening the security of these countries? Well, according to recent reports, some government agencies in Nigeria have decided to work together to use advanced technology for better tracking and management of petroleum products. This, they say, will help to reduce issues like smuggling and ensure smoother distribution. The agencies include the Nigerian Customs Service, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, and the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. But how will the Nigerian Customs Service fight this crime when, according to investigations by top Nigerian investigative journalist Fisayo Soyombo, the same agency has been carrying out smuggling? So is it a matter of thieves investigating themselves? I guess we will never know.
Anyone can bring in anything into Nigeria if you pay the right people.